Well, this is a multi-billion-dollar fraud program that is still being uncovered. Now, estimates are estimating that it's about $9 billion of tax money.
Have you ever wondered how billions of dollars in illegal cash vanish without a trace? Or how tons of product move through the busiest ports in America undetected? It turns out there was a master key, a secret 50-year alliance between the Italian mafia and the Sinaloa Federation. They controlled everything from the docks in Long Beach to the banks in the fashion district. But that alliance is dead. A single betrayal ignited a conflict that has exposed the entire operation.
Over a dozen have been arrested in a crackdown on what investigators say is an organized crime syndicate trafficking drugs from Mexico through Los Angeles.
We are going to show you exactly how this underground empire functioned, why it collapsed, and why federal agents are calling this the most dangerous moment in modern criminal history. The day the alliance died. The scale of what happened in Los Angeles is difficult to comprehend without understanding the precision of the takedown. This was not a standard police operation where sirens wail and lights flash. This was a synchronized, military-grade dismantling of a shadow government. At 5 in the morning, while the city slept, task forces from the Bureau, Homeland Security, and the Los Angeles Police Department executed a maneuver that had been planned for months. They hit secret warehouses in the industrial sector, unassuming office buildings in the fashion district, and storage facilities in Long Beach simultaneously. In a span of 4 hours, 3,000 suspects were in custody. But here is the catch. These weren't just low-level dealers or street enforcers. The dragnet caught accountants, logistics managers, and financial brokers. It was a decapitation strike aimed at a structure that had stood for 50 years. The Italian-American crime families and the Mexican cartels had operated in a symbiotic relationship that was almost corporate in its efficiency. The Italians provided the laundering and the political cover. The cartels provided the product and the muscle. It was a perfect marriage of convenience that generated $10 billion a year. But it is not that simple, though. Relationships in the underworld are built on fear and profit, not trust. When agents cracked the encrypted files seized during the raids, they found the smoking gun, a series of payment records that didn't add up. One side had been skimming off the top of a multi-billion-dollar cocaine shipment, cutting the other out of the loop. This betrayal was the spark that burned down a half-century of cooperation. The violence that followed was unlike anything Los Angeles had seen. We are used to hearing about gang violence, but this was different. Security cameras near the port captured footage that looked like it belonged in a war zone. Armored vehicles, automatic weapons, and tactical movement in broad daylight. This was the Italian faction sending a message about an unpaid debt. It was a declaration of war that shattered the invisible truce holding the city's underworld together. Federal prosecutors now confirm that Los Angeles has become the primary hub for international crime syndicates in the United States. It is the central nervous system for a body that stretches across the continent. The sheer volume of cash and product moving through the city has distorted the local economy. Real estate prices in certain industrial zones are artificially inflated because front companies pay cash above asking price to secure stash houses. This is the reality of the situation. The criminals were not just hiding in the city, they were buying it piece by piece. The logistics of a ghost economy. You might be asking, how do you move that much product without getting caught? The answer lies in the infrastructure itself. The criminals stopped trying to bypass the system and started integrating into it. The ports of Los Angeles and Long Beach are the busiest in the Western Hemisphere, handling millions of containers a year. The cartels realize that finding a needle in a haystack is impossible if you own the haystack. Here is the deal. Operation Irondale revealed that criminal logistics were running parallel to legal ones. They had their own dispatchers, their own trucking companies, and their own unions. A container arriving from Asia with legitimate electronics would have a false wall loaded with synthetic drugs. It would be offloaded by a crane operator on the cartel's payroll, placed on a truck owned by a shell company, and driven to a warehouse that, on paper, was a furniture distribution center. It was a city within a city. Homeland Security reports describe an ecosystem so self-sufficient it had its own insurance policies for lost shipments. If a load was seized by police, the family of the driver was compensated, and the loss was written off as a business expense. This level of sophistication is what allowed them to scale up to $10 billion. They weren't acting like criminals. They were acting like a multinational logistics firm. But everyone is obsessed with the drugs, and they miss the bigger picture. The port was just the entry point. The distribution network fanned out from Los Angeles to over 200 cities across America. This means the fentanyl hitting the streets of Chicago or the meth appearing in rural Kentucky likely started its journey on a dock in Long Beach, overseen by this alliance. The efficiency was terrifying. They used algorithms to track shipping routes and predict customs inspections, routing their illicit cargo through the path of least resistance. And get this, the corruption wasn't just at the docks. It extended to the airport. LAX handles millions of passengers and tons of air freight daily. The investigation revealed that baggage handlers and ground crew were being paid up to 5 times their annual salary to simply look the other way for 10 minutes. That is all it took. 10 minutes to move a crate from an international flight to a domestic van. The authorities acknowledge they physically cannot inspect everything. They rely on intelligence. And for 50 years, the intelligence was blinded by the fact that the two biggest players were working together, keeping the violence low and the profits high. A digital laundromat. Now, making $10 billion is one thing. Spending it is another. You cannot just walk into a bank with a truckload of cash. This is where the Italian faction's expertise became invaluable, and where the operation gets truly complex. The fashion district in Los Angeles became the washing machine for dirty money. Hundreds of millions of dollars flowed through tiny storefronts that sold fabric and cheap jewelry. On the surface, these were struggling small businesses. Behind the counter, they were financial hubs. Agents found money counting machines that ran 24 hours a day. But the cash didn't stay cash for long. This is where the modern twist comes in. The crazy part is that they modernized the black market peso exchange using cryptocurrency. In the past, money laundering was slow and risky. You had to physically move bulk cash across borders. Now, criminal accountants, and yes, that is a real job title in this world, would take the cash from the street sales, buy legitimate goods like textiles or electronics, and export them to foreign countries. But instead of settling the invoices with bank transfers, they used crypto. They would digitize the illicit funds, route them through brokers in China to obfuscate the origin, and then pay the suppliers. The suppliers would ship the goods, which were sold legally in Mexico or South America, turning the drug money into clean retail revenue. It was a perfect circle. Federal agents uncovered over $50 million in verified transactions in just 1 year from a single node of this network. What most people don't realize is that this system turns the global financial market into a weapon. The cartels didn't need to hide their money in holes in the desert anymore. They hid it in the blockchain. They hired programmers and financial hackers who wrote code to split transactions into microscopic amounts, bouncing them through thousands of digital wallets in seconds. By the time the money reached its destination, it looked like a standard payment for imported denim. This financial sophistication exacts a heavy human toll. The investigation found that ordinary people were being sucked into this. Bank tellers, real estate agents, car dealerships. People who thought they were just bending the rules were actually facilitating a transnational criminal enterprise. The network purchased luxury homes and vehicles to park their wealth, driving up costs for actual residents. They effectively gentrified neighborhoods with blood money. The reflection nodes and national security. The scariest part of this investigation isn't what they found in Los Angeles. It is what they found elsewhere. The Los Angeles network was just the mothership. It had already replicated itself. Investigators call them reflection nodes. They found mirror image structures in Chicago, Atlanta, and New York. Basically, the cartel and the mafia had franchised their model. They set up identical money laundering systems, identical logistics fronts, and identical command structures in these other cities. If the FBI shut down Los Angeles, the Chicago node could pick up the slack within weeks. It is a hydra. Cut off one head, and two more grow back. This resilience is why Washington has elevated this to a Tier 1 threat. This isn't just a crime problem anymore. It is a national security crisis. The collapse of the alliance has created a power vacuum that is being filled by chaos. Street crews in these satellite cities are transforming into mercenaries. Without the central control of the alliance, loyalty is dead. Everyone is a free agent, offering their services to the highest crypto bidder. And that is putting it lightly. The danger spreads faster than intelligence can track. Because the war is digital. The battles are fought on servers. When the Italians and the cartels split, they didn't just shoot at each other. They hacked each other. They started leaking each other's financial data to the police. They froze each other's crypto wallets. It is a civil war fought with code and bullets simultaneously. Federal reports confirm that identical networks are emerging in Houston and Miami, operating in stealth mode. They are testing the response times of law enforcement. They are probing for weaknesses. The DIA warns that if these reflection nodes synchronize, the United States will face a level of criminal integration that is impossible to police. We are looking at a future where organized crime is more efficient, better funded, and more technologically advanced than the agencies trying to stop it. Forever war. So, here is the deal. The Department of Justice is calling this the largest purge operation in American history. 3,000 arrests, billions seized. It sounds like a victory lap, but privately, officials are terrified because they suspect they didn't just win a battle, they might have walked right into a trap. There is a wild theory circulating in intelligence circles that this entire bust was actually a controlled demolition orchestrated by the cartels themselves to trim the fat. Think about it. The 3,000 people arrested were the foot soldiers, the drivers, the guys handling physical cash, the liabilities. By sacrificing the old guard, the unseen architects of this $10 billion empire have effectively digitized their entire operation, removing the human error that leads to snitches and leaks. It is not that simple, though. Federal analysts are comparing these criminal empires to highly adaptive viruses that mutate under pressure. The remnants of the Sinaloa and Italian factions are already regenerating, but not as crime families. They are registering as tech startups in Delaware and shell corporations in the Cayman Islands, buying up server farms instead of warehouses. The Department of Homeland Security has designated Los Angeles as a living laboratory for transnational crime, but some experts believe it is darker than that. The theory is that these syndicates are using the city to beta test a new form of sovereign corporate warfare, where a criminal organization becomes so integrated into the local economy, owning the logistics, the housing, and the banking, that the government cannot remove them without collapsing the entire city. It is the perfect petri dish for criminal innovation, and the results are being sold to the highest bidder on the dark web. The battle has shifted to cyberspace. And this is where it gets truly dystopian. The new generation of crime lords are not guys in silk suits sitting in social clubs. They are anonymous avatars on decentralized networks. And some might not even be human. There is growing speculation that the logistical algorithms running these drug routes are now fully autonomous, managed by AI that can predict law enforcement movements with frightening accuracy. They use drones to monitor the ports, not just to watch for police, but to map thermal patterns and security gaps that no human eye could catch. The United States has spent over $1 trillion on the drug war since 1972, yet the drugs are cheaper and more potent than ever. So, looking at the sheer size of this bust, you have to ask yourself, if they caught 3,000 people and seized $10 billion, how much did they miss? Is this a victory lap? Or did we just annoy a beast that is already growing a new head? What do you think? Can technology ever truly defeat organized crime? Or will the black market always be one step ahead? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. If you want to stay updated on this underground war, make sure to like and subscribe. I will see you in the next one.